Today, the 10th of June, 2026, has brought about a terrible, terrible bit of news. I've got hay fever because I didn't take my hay fever tablet this morning. Oh yeah, and Doctor Who's over. Yeah, let's talk about that. Hey everyone, Dan here, and as you all probably know, if you follow Doctor Who at the minute, it's been in a real state of limbo. It's been really unclear of what the future of the show is going to look like, and today, as I'm recording this, the 10th of June 2026, we finally have some concrete evidence and some concrete news from the BBC and Rusty Davies himself on the future of Doctor Who, and on the surface, it ain't looking good. So the BBC put out a press release regarding the future of Doctor Who, so I'll just read it now and I'll put it on screen, just so there's that kind of, we're all clear on what has actually been said, so nothing gets taken out of context or any misinformation spread. I just want to get it clear, kind of have a strong basis for this, and then we can go from there and talk about the reaction and the response of that. The statement reads as follows. Today we're announcing an update on plans for the future of Doctor Who. As part of securing the next phase of the show for future generations and in line with the BBC's chartering agreement requirements, the BBC will put Doctor Who out to competitive tender this year. Doctor Who remains an important part of the BBC, and this tender underpins the BBC's continued commitment to Doctor Who, ensuring audiences will enjoy the show for years to come. After careful consideration, the BBC, Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf have collectively decided not to go ahead with the previously announced Doctor Who Christmas episode. This decision was not taken lightly, and we know it will be disappointing for fans, but in order to set up for the future series, it was decided that rather than bridge the gap with a one-off special, we are choosing to push forward to invest in the long-term future of the show, which ensures that when the TARDIS lands once more, it does so in all its glory. The previously announced new Doctor Who animation series for CBeebies is currently in production. Details of the tender will be announced in due course. The BBC retains all IP in Doctor Who. BBC Studios will continue to lead the global distribution of the Doctor Who, as well as licensing consumer products, digital and immersive experiences on behalf of the BBC. So yeah, not great, is it? Additionally, Russell T Davies has also put a statement on Instagram, which I will also read before we get into breaking down what this all means and my kind of thoughts on it. So this is what Russell T Davies himself has said. And so goodbye from me to Doctor Who, but hello to a big new feature for the show as the BBC announces it's putting the show out to tender. As a result, there won't be a Christmas special. We only cooked that up to guarantee a future when no one knew what would happen, but now we do know there's no need for it. You'll have to wait a bit longer for new Doctor Who, but you'll be waiting for more Doctor Who than a one-off, so it's worth it. For the record, there was no script, I never wrote it, and no actor was ever approached to play the Doctor. You may disagree, fine, sit in that chair and wait to be proved right. You'll wait a long time. Now I'm as excited as anyone to see what comes next. Will they keep the theme tune? Will they lose the blue blocks? Will they bring back the Dravins? It's all up for grabs, which is so Doctor Who, exciting and unpredictable and new. Here comes the future, warp warp. So those are the two kind of announcements, one from the BBC directly, one from Rusty Davies directly, and this is what we can kind of gather from all of this. One, the 2026 Christmas special that was announced back in October has been scrapped, and apparently there's been no actual work on it in terms of like a script, casting, etc. This isn't like Sharda back in the 70s where it was cancelled midway through production because of external factors like industrial strike action. This is very much at its conception, didn't get passed and basically was scrapped before it could even start. Two, Rusty Davies as showrunner and Bad Wolf as a business partner with BBC are now stepping away from Doctor Who. Their time is done. And three, the BBC are putting the show up for tenders, basically actually putting out for bidding for other external financiers to back the show. Now this is a really interesting spot to be in, and it feels quite, in a way, unprecedented, but also it is very much the wilderness years too, Electric Boogaloo. And I of course have many thoughts on this. On the one hand, obviously, as a fan who's grown up loving this show and it's been, massive inspiration to me as a creative, as a person, just generally, it is obviously sad to see it go like this. And it of course is a sad thought to have, to think there won't be any Doctor Who for the foreseeable future until, we don't know when. However, on the other hand, and I kind of alluded to this before, and a lot of people have, to be fair, it very much was at a point where it needed a rest. I think when the behind-the-scenes stuff, particularly during the Gatwa era, became so obviously out of control, and it was very clear to see, looking from the outside, how unsmooth and how rough things were looking, it kind of is that point where, yeah, it definitely does need a rest. I mean, everybody has banged on about how the reality war is an obvious trouble production, the whole Billy Piper Doctor thing, which is now not going to get resolved. That's just going to be left dangling there. All that stuff that was set up, the whole thing with the boss, the Susan stuff, that's all just gonna be left hanging. And yeah, in some ways, I'm kind of sad that we're not gonna get a sort of wrap up to this sort of stuff. You know, with the Christmas special, that probably would have wrapped all this up. And yeah, it is a bit sad that we won't get that, because I think it's desperately need to wrap it up, because now it's just gonna be like, this is what we're left with. This is our last note that we're gonna leave Doctor Who on. But on the other hand, as well, there was no way of making that special work coherently and it to be a good episode. It would have just existed basically as franchise maintenance. That's all it really would have been. And it would have just been a whole load of fan service and nostalgia bait. That's pretty much all it would have been. And so from that point of view, I'm kind of happy that we're not just keeping the show alive for the sake of it, and we're just putting it to rest until we can find a new direction for it. Although it does make you wonder, if there was no script for this Christmas special, there was no plan to actually carry it on, why would in the reality war would you have that Billy? Why you know, everybody has said it, but it does, you know, bear saying. Why would you not just have it as an open ending? You know, just have Shooty start to regenerate, fair, and then fade to black. At least at that point, you know, you can kind of just pick it up at any point, and you know, you're not kind of tied down to explaining the Billy Piper thing, because it just makes no bloody sense at all, and there's no satisfying way of solving that. Now, obviously, with this scenario, you are naturally going to compare it with the previous Wilderness Years, and obviously, you're going to kind of compare the reality war, the last episode of New Who, to the last episode of Classic Who, Survival. And while Survival it's not necessarily like the sort of definitive end of Doctor Who. They didn't necessarily know that it was going to be the very last thing that was ever made for the show at the time. But you can definitely feel it in the story. The production team definitely sensed this was probably going to be the end. And obviously you have the famous story where the speech at the end, Sylvester McCoy's speech at the end, was recorded around 2 weeks before that episode went out as just an additional coda to the whole show at that point. But if you look at the story of Survival as a whole, it has this atmosphere of finality to it. You know, the Cheetah Planet dying and trying to survive. You've got the Doctor facing with the Master, like his arch enemy in the show. It does have a feeling of finality, whether it was subconsciously or not, of the creative team. You feel that influence that they definitely felt from the hires up, that Doctor's on its last legs here. Let's give it an appropriate send-off that isn't overblown. It's not like the Doctor destroying every bloody Dalek and every monster that he's ever faced in existence. It's not that, but it's in the subtext. It's in the atmosphere. It's in it's just subconsciously in there, and it creates that appropriate feeling of finality. And I am genuinely interested to see, because obviously that was at the time probably not considered, but like in retrospect, obviously people have looked back on Survival with that lens, and people can look at the context of it behind the scenes and have that reading of it. And I'm genuinely curious to see with the reality war, and I guess series 15 as a whole, how people will look at that, knowing that was the last of Doctor Who for a while. I'm thinking about stuff like in season 2, obviously there was the kind of countdown to getting Belinda home, and it was like May 24th when the world would end. Could people in retrospect almost read that as kind of the countdown to Doctor Who's inevitable end as a show? And I think particularly with the reality war, because of the production of that episode specifically, as to try and wrap everything up, the whole thing of like the whole unit family, all these people that the Doctor's met, you've got elements from across the show, like Mel representing Classic Who, you've got the Rani, you've got Omega, you've kind of got all these elements of the Doctor's heritage, and the whole thing of him, wanting to, like, obviously the universe resets, but Poppy is forgotten, and he's going to try and, sacrifice himself to save this one child, kind of that every life matters, even just one life and whatnot. Potentially as kind of, as butchered as the episode is, that is an element that I think conceptually is pretty good. And maybe that is something, kind of trying to end Doctor Who on that note. Again, as butchered as it is, I think there's maybe something there that you could read in as a kind of final note and a final kind of message of who the Doctor is to go out on. I say I may be stretching here, but I am interested to see these kind of retrospective look backs on this past season, and now that we know it, this is the end, this is where it ended for the time being. But overall, I want to end this video on somewhat of a positive note, as positive of a note as you can end this on. And I want to really end it with the age-old adage of, don't cry 'cause it's over, smile 'cause it happened. And another adage from Doctor Who, everything ends, and that's always sad, but everything begins again too. That's always happy. And that's the thing. It's got to end. Everything will end at some point, including Doctor Who. But think about how awesome the new series has been. The new series that kicked off in 2005 with Chris Eccleston and then continued to explode with popularity with David Tennant, continued to grow the popular in the States with Matt Smith, had some real innovation with Capaldi and Whittaker, had a lovely little reunion with David Tennant, and then Ncuti Gatwa, who, yes, you can say whatever you want about his era, but was beaming with potential and screen presence. And to be a fan during the new series, to have lived during that, it's awesome. Like, it's bloody awesome, you know? It's like, there's been so many phenomenal stories throughout this 20-year run of TV. What a great 20-year run of TV, with its ups and downs, but that's the case with anything. To think all the merchandise that's come out in this time period, all the conventions and whatnot, you know, the social media presence of Doctor Who, like the online Doctor Who fandom, yes, as negative as it can be, but there have been some amazing things to have come out of the fandom, like, during the social media age. There's been some fantastic things to come out of it. And ultimately, I want to end the video by saying I love Doctor Who. It's my favourite show, and probably always will be, you know? And it's as it influenced me so much, it's one of the things that got me into wanting to be a creative, like both acting and behind the camera. Like I say, while it's sad that it's over, you know, we still have 20 years of great TV to enjoy, as well as another 26 in the classic series. And also as well, the merchandise is still dropping, the expanded media is still ever expanding, and one day it will come back.
Yes, I shall come back.
One day it will. Like, one day it will come back with a new creative team and a new, younger, fresh vision. Because that's the thing. Even if this new era had gone absolutely just completely perfect and completely smooth, and how Russell envisioned it, that's still a vision that is the same as what it was 20 years ago, and it's still the same. You know, it's like Stephen Moffat, Chris Chibnall. It's basically just been these three blokes throughout 20 years helming it, and after a while it just does get stale, and you need something new, and I'm excited to see what that will bring when that comes. But until then, you take care, and have a great day.
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.